Perfect. So as we get started today, thanks for taking the time. Just want to start off with a land acknowledgement, recognizing that there are, I guess, a large variety of people coming to us from across this nation, but here at Brock in the Niagara region, we are on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe people, and many of whom continue to live and work here today. And just wanted to recognize that and have each of you recognize where you are currently working from today. And then recognizing and acknowledging that really our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendships of the Indigenous people. And then really today wanted to have a discussion about intramurals, how our years went, and then looking forward to the spring and summer and next year. If there are any burning questions that anyone has, please let me know. I have some here that of different things to discuss, but really what I may think everyone wants to talk about may not actually be what everyone wants to talk about, especially with how everyone's years may have been different. So Allison and I were just talking about how, depending on where you are in Canada, your kind of seasons and years may have been very different, just based on that alone. But I guess to get started, because there are some faces and people I don't recognize, so really probably should have started with this. My name is Megan Locker, and I work at Brock University, so in Niagara, looking after the intramural programs there. So if everyone wants to quickly introduce themselves. Allison, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Allison Fisher. I'm at the University of Regina, and I run Intramurals, Sport Clubs, children's programs, and aquatics.
Gareth, you're up.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Allison. Gareth Cunningham at Queen's University. I'm the Associate Director for Recreation and Active Living. Judith Ooswa is our coordinator of Intramurals, but she typically works Sunday through Thursdays and is off today and then off for a week's vacation after concluding the intramural season. So, and Queen's University is in Kingston, Ontario, just in case anyone's not aware. I'll pass it over to Andrea.
Hi, I'm Andrea Dietrich. I work with the University of Manitoba. I run the intramural program at our satellite campus from our main campus. And I'll pass it over to Matt.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, my name is Matt Girardi. I'm also at the University of Manitoba on our main Fort Garry campus, and I coordinate intramurals and rec clubs here. I will pass it to Crystal.
Awesome, thanks. I'm Crystal Westgate, currently physical activity and wellbeing coordinator at UBC Okanagan, soon to take over Lane McDougall's recreation manager role, in which she manages intramurals. So this will be my first season running our intramurals program. I'll pass it along to Ryan.
Ryan Smith. I work at Bishop's University. I'm the rec aquatics camps coordinator and recently intramurals and sports clubs. So thought I'd join this call. I'll pass it up to our friends up in Montreal at McGill.
Hey, I'm Ryan. I am the intramural manager at McGill. I think this is my third or fourth year in the role.
I guess that just leaves me. I'm Jenna Riley. I'm at Humber College in Toronto, and I run basically anything that's not fitness or varsity sports. I've just recently inherited back intramurals as our coordinator has moved to a different school.
Perfect. So just, it's crazy semesters wrapping up and kind of getting to the end of the school year. Really wanted to kind of look and focus on future leagues, leaving kind of what we did this year behind us, in hopes to then get back to next year being a more normal year and kind of having more answers in regards to being open and operational for our students, as that is what we're here on campus for. So looking ahead and kind of getting back into then what hopefully may be a more normal year and having everyone registering, students on campus, full year, things like that. And looking at then trends in sport. Has anyone had any discussion or thought or what are schools currently doing in regards to their leagues, in regards to then gender specific leagues, and when it comes to men's, women's, co-ed, any pushback from students that may be in the LGBTQ community, or anything that way on any campuses?
I can speak to UBC Okanagan. So we went, we removed our gender requirements for all of our intramural teams probably about 3 years ago. So all of our teams are like co-ed, is that the right term? I forget. But there's no like male or female teams. It's just it's an open registration. We haven't had any feedback from that, but I was really curious. Obviously, I'm quite new in this, and I'm just like, I actually haven't been immersed in it at all yet. I'm just really interested to know what our gender demographics are within intramurals, and where that's sitting in. Like from just watching some, I feel like our male participation is a lot higher than our female participation. That's all for now.
Elson and Regina, we changed the wording. So we have, our open leagues have no gender requirements. Our women's leagues or our co-rec leagues, they have to identify as that gender. So for our co-rec leagues, like our volleyball, for example, you have to have 2 people that identify as female, 2 people that identify as male, and then the other spots are open to whoever wants to play. And that's how we've managed that.
At Queen's University, we had a grad student work on looking across the nation at different different models that they had in place and that sort of thing. We used to have like a co-rec and still we didn't call them a men's league, but it was just an open league. As far as some of the numbers, Crystal, that we're seeing, the stats still pan out that it's about 60-40 on our campus. Roughly the 60% being male identifying or men identifying. And that trend has been the last few years, but it's sort of very similar to what was there before as well. Right now, we've kind of got an open leagues, mixed leagues, and we still have some women's leagues that we run. There's definitely still a large segment of the community here that's looking for a women's only league experience. So we're still trying to find ways to provide that. It's definitely the slowest to register. And there's always that challenge of how do we identify the right time and space to make sure that it's successful for those reasons versus other reasons why it may be slower to get registration and those sort of things. We've worked a little bit with what on our campus is called the Yellow House, literally because it's a yellow house, but it's a center for equity and inclusive activities and those sort of things. We've got a really enthusiastic member of that group right now that's trying to work, and I really like the term, it's called Fierce Movement. So they're working with us around different trans and LGBTQ, but just different program sort of initiatives. But the Intramurals one, they haven't really wanted to do much with yet. They just really wanted to more have specific time that was allocated more from open recreation and drop-in recreation sports and drop-in pool times and queer yoga and those sort of things, as opposed to the intramural sport realm. But we think that that's coming. We're going to be getting into more conversations over the summer months around that. So that's the experience that we've had here at Queen's most recently. The numbers seem to be almost the same every year, though, with that 60-40 split.
Gareth, that's encouraging. So I guess at Brock, I still have kind of men's, women's, and co-ed. And so I guess current discussion was, do we make then like men's just open, or then do we get rid of like any gender requirements and make them all kind of all open, in regards to then not having any requirements. But then, yeah, my worry would be that there wouldn't be as many females that would sign up. So, but good hearing that then there are like open co-rec and like co-ed and women's league still kind of running and operational, like good across the board. Matt said that they're the same as Regina in regards to that, and really just wanting to kind of, we haven't had any I guess issues at all, but want to like know that there are more students on campus, and want to make sure that intramurals are as inclusive as possible for all the students. So want to make sure that then we're ahead that way versus then catching up. So, which it sounds like with having our men's, women's, and co-ed, we might be a little bit behind in not having that open, like without any gender requirements. But yeah, it's just interesting always interesting and good to hear from other institutions what they're doing in regards to that. I guess I should ask, did anyone have any burning questions they wanted to ask, or anything specific that they want to cover? Any big issues that came up this year that they want to go through? Crystal?
I do, only because I'm new.
That's okay.
We have one facility on our campus, and intramurals is incredibly popular. Leagues fill up in literally 2 minutes. Like, it's been a major problem that we've had here over the last few years, of just so many students wanting to get involved and them not being able to. We're looking at adjusting our registration system for next fall to be a lottery system. So then we can take all the people who are interested and then kind of divvy them up, or like pick names out of the hat on who actually participates in which league. We're also looking at trying to limit, kind of administratively taxing, but limit how many competitive levels a student can participate within one sport. So they can only participate in like a competitive level and not the intermediate or not the just for fun, just to allow as many students to participate as possible. I'm wondering if any other schools are familiar with or know of anybody else that have moved to like a lottery system, and I would appreciate any learnings that you would have if you've done so, or any other way to like manage insane registrations.
We had to condense our season this semester and hence take less teams, and we thought about a lottery system. We didn't end up going that route, but I think it makes total sense, to be honest. And in terms of letting people play in different leagues, I think it would be most fair to only allow them to play in one. That's kind of our rule anyways, just so that someone in competitive can't play down a level and take advantage. So I think, just giving everyone one team or in that sport is fair for sure.
Is there a way that you enforce that, Ryan? Like that a player can only play in one league?
Yeah, so we use IM leagues, and they have different settings that they can't join multiple teams. And you can customize those on IM leagues.
Yeah, so that's the same at Brock, that from a sport league perspective, will only allow a participant to play in one single gender and one co-ed gender sport league per season, for any of our leagues. So IM leagues kind of has that function to be able to limit that, or then open it up. So we'll do a 3-on-3 March Madness tournament, and participants can play in co-ed, men's, like open, any of those divisions. And so then it opens it up for those. So IM Leagues does that for us, but we do only let participants play in one kind of competition or one, yes, like league division level. And so they choose the correct division that then is meant for their competition skill. Because we all know that, okay, a student may want to play with their friends in the just for fun league, but then come playoffs or if a game gets serious, then kind of their skill level will come out. So that's why we limit that. But yeah, we haven't needed to or haven't kind of gone to a lottery system at all. So I don't have experience with that one.
Crystal, you may want to reach out to Ian Munn at Calgary, because I want to say he had that issue at one point. I don't know. I know we talked about it a while ago, but I think he was the one who had that issue at one point. So you might want to reach out to him. I can put you in contact with him too.
Thank you. Will do.
Lobby for a new facility, it sounds like, or another facility.
Desperately. We share it with athletics, and it's insane. Like, it's booked to the max every day, every week of the year.
Yeah, we're honestly approaching that level as well. Losing more gym time, more field time every year to varsity.
Have you possibly explored the option of offering, one-off events, weekend events, Crystal? We tried that a bit this fall when we were allowed to run games and activities, and there was a lot of interest from our students, but we're not there yet with our numbers. But spike ball events, they Butsuft, like mini hockey tournaments, dodgeball events, stuff like that, and it worked well. It was nice just to get them in for a 1-day event or a 2-day event.
Yeah, that's something we're considering. Anything that's outside of the facility, because generally we have CIS games on the weekends. Using the field when it's not snowing.
Yeah, I feel like that's a consistent thing across recreation when it comes to intramurals, is then fitting in whatever times you can between other bookings and things that are in the gyms or on the field or anything that way. So it's, yeah, even our outdoor leagues are mostly during the day, because then our varsity teams will practice in the evening more so. And yeah, so being able to manage that. At Brock, we have, it's not Brock's facility, but this summer the Canada Games are going to be in Niagara. So there's a brand new facility that then is kind of beside campus that we will have access to, but the kind of agreement and understanding of who has access and when isn't finalized yet. So it'll be operational through Brock, City of St. Catharines, and City of Thorold, with then many owners. So Brock, City of St. Catharines, City of Thorold, and the Niagara region kind of owning and operating the building. So kind of very different that way, and kind of waiting to see what will happen there in terms of space, because then it's not just recreation athletics at Brock, it's then also different city partners and city groups. Ryan?
Did you mention you do games during the day, like during school hours?
Yeah, so well, I want to say recently, but not really recently. Brock has kind of changed class schedules that really from 8 a.m. until like 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and then even until like 5 p.m. on Fridays, students could have class. So you could have a 7 to 10 p.m. class. So no matter when we run intramurals, we come in contact or kind of conflict with scheduling and classes. So our more popular sports will like advertise what time the games can be between. So then if you have class that entire time, you're not signing up for that league, or hopefully you aren't. But yeah, any of our outdoor leagues, we run between like 2 and 6 p.m. because then varsity will take our field, like use the turf field after 6. So we advertise that that's the time it's between, and then teams and participants will put in like a request to play before 5 because they have class at 5 p.m. Yeah, so classes run all the time. So we're always kind of scheduling around that versus then like it's not anymore that majority of classes are during the day or before 5 p.m. or something like that. It's a large amount of time. So we're always kind of going to be running into class schedule conflicts.
Yeah. I find McGill is also, every year there's more and more night classes. So it has got me thinking, like, if people can't make games at night, then do we put games to the afternoon? Or I've even thought about hockey at like 7 a.m. because that's when the rink is available and it's classes start at 8:30. But yeah, if more and more night classes start coming, then that's just going to take away our time anyways. So we need to find new time that teams can play, and IM Leagues is great with adding restrictions to when you can or when you want to play or not. So it's interesting stuff to think about for sure.
Yeah, so we've run like a Friday afternoon basketball league, and so we advertise that it's between 12 and 6. So we advertise that it's the afternoon, or like specifically Tuesday morning volleyball. And so it's between 9 a.m. and noon. So if you can't play between that time, then the expectation is you don't sign up for that time, or you, like I said, hopefully don't, or even like 7 to 10 p.m. And then if you have class, then you know you're not gonna be able to make any of it, versus then if it runs from 5 to 10 or something. Yeah, something like that. There's, yeah, classes all the time. Crystal?
That's really hopeful news, because we are doing the same thing at our university. They're moving to like longer class days. Do you find, first off, do you have student referees or officials, and do you have difficulty recruiting them during those times as well? Like, what does your intramural staff look like? All the questions, but like, yeah, I'm just worried about having like daytime things and then not having the student officials to actually run the games.
Yeah, so that definitely comes into play. There's a lot of things with officials that I'm like, okay, what about this? What about this? Like their class schedule really is then, yeah, one of them. So think of it this way, that if there are participants that are able to play, or kind of I thought about this way, that if there's participants able to play and sign up during that time, then I'm sure there's officials, or then participants, like we've had to reach out to participants that are in the league to ask them if they would like to officiate when they're not playing. Especially during those daytime ones, or kind of the more like flag football is an example, that not as, we always have a harder time finding officials for flag football, but not a hard time finding participants. So it's, okay, you play at 3 p.m. Can you then ref at 4 and 5? Or reaching out to participants in the league, because then you know they've signed up for the league. So hopefully they don't have class during that time. And then you know they also know the rules and are interested in that sport. So we've had to do that before, specifically flag football. Basketball, we've done that before just because there's a lot of officials and a lot of them play in the league as well. Yeah, so it changes, or it varies that way. Jennifer?
I was just going to say, our intramurals run during the day around their academic schedule. So the students, I find that they actually like it because they have something to do between their classes. They can go and make a little bit of money. And it also frees up their evenings and weekends because our programs don't run during those times. They can get another part-time job off campus, or they can play a varsity sport. They can play an extramural sport because those are all happening after the 4 p.m. hour. So we find that students really do like the opportunity to have these odd schedules available to them.
Are you able to, like, if you're advertising, okay, this is a Tuesday 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. league, are you able to run different tiers and levels of competition within that time frame, or is it all teams are in one league? I guess it would depend on your facility availability, but
We're only running one league.
Right.
We don't have separate leagues. We can never fill. We're lucky if we get 10 to 12 teams per league. So we're very small in that sense, but we schedule. So there may be a floor hockey game at 10 o'clock, and in the same gym at 11, it might be volleyball. In the same gym at 12, it might be indoor soccer. And then the same gym at 1, it might be back to floor hockey. So there's a constant change up. So the facility staff actually help with the changeover, but so we would never advertise like volleyball is only on Tuesdays. It's volleyball runs Monday to Friday, and you give us your availability and we match it up with the referee availability and a gym availability, and that's when your game is.
So it sounds like a lot of moving parts when it comes to scheduling.
Very.
Jennifer, do you use IM Leagues or a software?
So the coordinator, our intramural coordinator, did have IM Leagues for the past 3 seasons. I will be honest, I've never looked at it, but we do have it, and that will be our go-to. Yeah.
Does anyone else run different intramurals, different like odd times? So Jennifer, I saw that you do like 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on, or that on Saturdays you run intramurals as well.
No, those are our academic class times.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's all academic class time.
Oh, okay. Well, so do you run intramurals on weekends?
Sunday nights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at Brock, we'll run on Sundays as well. So during the day and evening, depending on the sports. Any other weekend times for leagues?
Yeah, we run 7 days a week. Weekends we start at 9 a.m. too. So
how's the turnout for those weekend times?
Pretty good. I honestly think a lot of teams prefer weekend afternoons versus like a evening weekday. Not so much. I think only our soccer league's 9 a.m. just because it's our biggest and we need time. And honestly, there's not too many defaults. Basketball starts more around lunch. But yeah, even staff, I find they really are more available on the weekend kind of afternoon slots. So I'd say it's one of our more popular days, Saturday, Sundays.
We unfortunately had to shift our hockey to Saturdays, and it's been quite awful, to be honest. Numbers have been terrible. Traditionally speaking, Bishop's is a very party-heavy school on Thursdays and Saturdays, so we don't really want to run anything on those days, but it's nice to see that Sunday afternoons and Sunday evenings are going well, because our facilities, for the most part, quite empty during that time. So if we could take advantage of that and, try and schedule it for the afternoon so they have a bit of time to sweat the booze out a little bit, then that would be good. But yeah.
Yeah, mostly Sundays for us. Our ice hockey, we run Sunday through Thursday, and it's like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And teams sign up knowing that that's the time that we're running. Like I said, with this new building, we'll be switching arenas. So I'm not sure exactly what times. I'm thinking it'll be similar still. So yeah, we've run into issues in the past before that participants have been enjoying their time at home beforehand and having a few beverages. So we've had to deal with that, or kind of have staff ready for that one. But yeah, I couldn't Saturdays would be tough, but yeah, so Sundays. And yeah, Thursdays when we always kind of needed to watch out when we had our on-campus bar open, but this year's been hasn't been open at all, so haven't had those issues, so luckily. But yeah, lots of other kind of daytime intramurals. We don't run Saturdays at all though, but our building a lot of the times has like varsity games or other tournaments or community programs, things like that in a typical year. So busy that way. Jennifer, did you still have your hand up for something or just up from before?
Sorry, it's just up from before.
No worries. Just want to make sure. Going back to kind of officials, how does everyone hire their officials and do training? So currently at Brock, it's a very, I guess, open and available process to be able to apply and start officiating, because it is done kind of really the week before leagues begin. So we have a clinic where we'll go over the Brock specific rules and rules of the sport that they are applying for or interested in. And then really, as long as the student shows interest and gets us their availability, then we kind of give them that chance to officiate and kind of show us what they have or what they're able to do. But really this year we've realized that then that has left us with either a very large number of officials that then aren't necessarily as like confident or as skilled, or we're really reaching out for more officials. So curious what everyone does that way. So all of our officials are students that don't necessarily need to be certified in the sport. So that does include ice hockey. And yeah, just curious what everyone else does.
I'd like to piggyback off of varsity athletics or sports clubs on campus. So all of our basketball games are officiated by our men's and women's basketball players, and rightfully so. I try and keep it as fair as possible. So for every male athlete I hire, I'll hire a female athlete. Other stuff is a little bit more particular. If there's no varsity sport on campus, there's probably a sports club on campus. So volleyball, we don't have varsity volleyball, but we do have a number of ex-college players from Quebec or outside the province. I've been playing for 10 plus years. Again, just kind of piggyback off that, and it has been going well. Noticed in the past, our competitive leagues are kind of like our tier 1 leagues tend to argue the most with our officiating crew. It was an interesting Wednesday night this week, I'll say that. If we can kind of stem off this at the end as well, it'd be nice to see how maybe your officials tackled certain situations, maybe depending on the different types of leagues you offer.
So we do the same. We use our basketball officials. I'd be curious to know what you guys pay your officials, because that's what our feedback is. They're like, we can make more here or whatever. And normally we hire the basketball officials and our equipment room hires other athletes. And this year they still are basketball officials. So that was a tough go, but we don't use officials for a lot of our sports. Like volleyball is self-officiated. We used to bring in officials and it caused more fights and arguments and everything else. So we actually cut them because it caused more issues than it solved.
We pay our officials $15 an hour.
But what's minimum wage?
I forget what Quebec minimum wage. It's just going up too. So I think they're all getting another 1% increase June 1st. I want to say it's $14 or $13.
It goes to $14.25 on May 1st.
Okay. Yeah, so then I think ours jumps up on the same scale. all our officials are unionized. They're part of a student union. So that's another issue we have to deal with sometimes, because I've been wanting to increase different like pay scales if you are certified, but it's tough with the union because you're technically doing the exact same job as the person next to you. So yeah, we've been experimenting with a lot of, or not experimenting, but coming up with different ideas to try and improve our officiating. Each of our sports has a sport coordinator as well, so we ask for those people to be fully certified and actually run our training sessions for all the officials for their sport. So I really lean on those people to do the training. Another thing we implemented last year, which I really liked, was at McGill, we have a thing called My Courses. It's where, you know, students find all their course materials online, where profs post the lectures and reading materials. So I actually was able to get like basically a referee training course onto that platform. So that's where we post all our rule books, training videos, any Zoom meetings that are recorded. It's like a one-stop shop for all our referees to go to find everything they need. It also has like an onboarding checklist of all the things they need to do. You can run quizzes and tests through this platform as well. So we really like that. And then kind of the last thing I'm looking to implement is just training based off which year you're going into. So if you're a rookie official with us, you're going to get a certain training session, whereas if you're a third or fourth year official, you're going to get a different training session. And in that training session, we might go over like conflict management or some other high level things versus like hearing the exact same presentation for 4 years straight. Just try and build on their knowledge. Whereas, you know, in first year, we're just, you know, making sure the game gets completed safely. And then we kind of build from there each year. So yeah, trying to improve our staffing was kind of one of my big projects the last couple of years. So if you ever want to chat further, I'm willing to meet one-on-one if you want.
Ryan, what's the hiring process for officials? Like, how many officials do you hire a year?
I have anywhere from 100 to 120 officials. I mean, we're a large school and large program, so we have like 4,000 participants a semester. We also just switched HR programs to Workday, so now all of our hiring has to be done through Workday. I think I'm the only one at McGill that actually likes it. Everyone else seems to have had a poor experience, but I think it's streamlined everything pretty easily. So yeah, so everyone has to apply through Workday, and there's a link on like our internal and external career site on our school site. Then yeah, we just do kind of a quick interview with them and then and hire them based on that interview basically. But it is a lot of work for 100 people, I guess. But I mean, we're generally like 75% returning and 25% new, except for the COVID year where we lost double the amount of people and needed to bring everyone on. Everyone was new.
Ryan, was that referee training course that you did online, was that built internally by you, or is that an external course?
So the platform is something the university uses, and they just gave me access to it. So then I had to build all of the content. So a lot of it was just posting our rule books, our PowerPoints, the recorded Zoom meetings of the training meetings. But there are other tools you can do, like quizzes. You can upload YouTube videos. So I was just finding like other sports clinics from other stuff online and said, hey, you can watch this on your own time if you're looking to improve. The tricky part is, and again, they're unionized, so it's like they need to be paid for all of their training hours. So if someone logs 10 hours on this training module, or they're on my courses for 10 hours, like, am I paying them all for 10 hours? So I usually just set a rule like, hey, we're paying you 3 hours to go over all of this material, do it on your own time type of thing. But you can also track the hours they've been logged on and what they're looking at as well. But I haven't really fine-tuned how we should be tracking that and what they're eligible for. But to answer your question, I built most of it, but a lot of it was just from the training we did in person anyways. It's just making it all available online.
So Crystal, depending on the learning management system that your school uses, so like Brock's transitioning from Sakai to Bright Spot, I think was the new one right now. So like with Sakai, I got access to be able to use it. So sounds the same as Ryan, to be able to have like an intramural one that then, much like a student's class schedule with then lectures that are posted or assignments, things like that, used it to then be able to post trainings, as well as then like meeting agendas, things like that. So I've done that for kind of core conveners, but not for officials, or I guess, yeah, because it sounds like it would be a good idea, and to be able to kind of have that training available to them. And because some want to learn and get better, and others are just in it for the job. Like Jennifer posted in the chat, if you guys didn't see that, yeah, if students realize that they're getting paid the same amount to stand at a desk, check students in, and hand out a towel, versus then potentially officiating intramural games and getting yelled at, that why would they not choose what they see as the easier option? So I think we'll be in the same kind of similar boat that way, or trying to kind of convince or get more officials, and need that kind of incentive that way. So, but going back to kind of what Ryan said earlier in regards to kind of officials dealing with different situations, at Brock, our officials aren't necessarily as trained, but at any of our leagues, there is a convener or kind of sports supervisor there that is trained further and kind of has gone through some like conflict management and different training that way. So I will rely on those staff for anything that kind of is being dealt with, so then the official can continue officiating and keep the game moving. A little bit hard when it comes to, let's say, ice hockey as an example, with being on the ice versus off the ice, but anything then in a gym, court, field, a little bit easier for the convener to be able to step in and then pull participants to the side, or pull participants out to be able to deal with those. But really, I have had to discipline, well, yes, participants, but then also staff or officials from kind of swearing back at participants, or kind of their conduct. And it's hard because they're getting yelled at and they get frustrated, but then they do go through kind of training, or are told like how to deal with different situations. So it's one thing that I kind of even noticed this year, being like, okay, are participants getting meaner, or our staff like not kind of dealing with situations as well, is one that kind of I've noticed this year. But I do know running intramurals or running training virtually has been a lot more difficult on us as full-time staff, but then also for our student staff as well, being able to kind of get the message across. Has anyone else seen more conflicts in regards to participants and their behavior during games, or then how staff are dealing with any conflicts that arise?
We actually saw less this year than we have in the past. And I think it's this, they're so happy to just be able to play that when the officials called anything, they're like, yep, great, let's keep moving. Like they were just so happy to be there. So that was a nice change. I feel like we're going to get into that next year though.
Well then, Allison and Andrea, with not having, you both said you've kind of moved away from officials for some of your sports. For both of you guys, just to clarify, like you've seen less conflict and issues within those leagues compared to then when there were officials?
Yeah, so go ahead,
Sorry.
Andrea.
I'm so sorry. We've never used officials at our campus. We're predominantly a professional campus, like med students, dentistry, rehab sciences. They don't really want to walk away with injuries. So they generally are a lot better about keeping their tempers in check, generally. But yeah, this year we really haven't had any problems with needing to discipline players. We haven't really had any instances of fighting, but it's normally like that for us at our campus.
Yeah, so we pulled the officials out of volleyball is really where we've pulled our officials out of. Basketball, it's not possible. Just not possible. Or here anyway. But we found that like when there were officials, because it's honor system, when the officials were there, they weren't helping, they weren't willing to call anything. And the second we pulled them, that reduced all the issues. We still have somebody present in the gym, but we have one person for 3 courts versus 3 people for 3 courts. And so if there is an issue, that person will step in and check in and see what's going on and see how they can help to resolve the situation. And usually it's like, why don't you just reserve? Oh yeah, that works. Okay, great. But for the most part, like we have less issues than ever in volleyball than we've ever had and I think part of it is people are calling themselves on things. And if it's close, if it's a net or whatever, but I have found it's way easier to manage volleyball now than ever before. And I don't know if it's just, we pulled it before COVID. So I don't think it's because of COVID. I just think they're used to it and that's how they play and they know nobody's going to call it. And so teams just tend to get along better, which is a really nice thing. And like we have our competitive and our rec league, we have 2 different leagues and we have no issues in either one. Our rec league is probably where the sketchier calls are made than in our competitive league.
So even in playoffs?
Yep. Yeah. We had one pot that we'll bring them back for playoffs. And then after 2 years, we're like, out. No. Like, cause they just then made the official call everything and the official can't see everything. And so they would miss a lot of stuff along the back line. And normally where I've watched these teams who are super gracious and good about playing and calling that stuff, the second that an official was involved, it was like, nope, that's the official's job. And then like they were yelling at officials and I was like, we're done. Why are we doing this? Like, yeah, we noticed a huge change in a good way.
I was gonna say, anyone else run leagues that with no officials where there normally is an official for the sport? No? Crazy. I guess backed off on, so we used to have 2 officials for volleyball. I kind of backed off on 1 this year. Just because the second official I felt didn't do it, like they would just flip the scoreboard. That's what they thought their job was, even after kind of telling them and reminding them that no, you're still watching the net, you're still watching the ball, you're still watching the lines. Like yeah, and no issues throughout our kind of regular season and playoffs at all. So might just keep it that way. But really now thinking, do I get rid of them completely? We'll see what staff feel about that one. But yeah, so as I said earlier, any kind of conflicts, I'll rely on kind of our intramural conveners or that kind of core staff that's there at the league more than the officials, especially since our officials are, I guess like they're not as trained as much and they potentially could work like 1-2 hour shift a week. Whereas then the conveners are probably working more and kind of have more experience that way. So for any issues, then kind of use them a little bit more. Brian, did you have any specific like incidents or things that have come up?
I mean, things I have come up, we started late this year in Quebec. We started actually after March break for our leagues. And just generally speaking, once you throw in that competitive name in the title, it does get a little bit more intense, especially being in playoffs right now. We did recently hire an intramural supervisor, a student supervisor, to help manage the leagues and help the officiating crew to run the night, just so I didn't have to be here 12 hours a day. And that's been going well. But I've just noticed just a lack of overall respect towards the players, to their own teammates, to the officiating crew, and it's just been an interesting couple of weeks, to be honest. So I'm kind of looking forward to our season ending next week. But yeah, no, it was more so just, in a sense, I let the refs do their job and understand or manage games maybe a little bit differently, if that makes sense. So if it's two very easygoing teams, they might have a different approach to how they ref the game and some of the calls they make, and it goes well. Whereas if two teams are a little bit more competitive in nature, then they're going to be a little bit more hands-on. But I think they may have been a little bit too hands-on last Wednesday at our competitive soccer playoffs. A couple teams kicked out, a couple players forfeited. One kid grabbed another kid by his throat. And it's like, this is intramural soccer we're talking about right now. Just, these are your classmates. You don't have to be an a-hole about it. But no, I was just generally curious about it. Glad to hear that I'm not the only one running with into issues.
Soccer, I find soccer is our worst sport.
Same.
Like, it is.
Also the same.
Yeah.
I explain it in that my thought of it is what we define as recreation in Canada, and I find the way our teams register, we have a team from Saudi Arabia, we have a team from Nigeria, and how we define recreation is very different than they define in their country. And then it becomes a pride thing, and it is awful. We've had students take other students to like the BP, student affairs, filing like complaints, trying to get kids kicked out because they didn't like how they treated them in a soccer game. And I'm like, whoa. So like soccer, if anybody has a solution on how to manage soccer, please let me know.
Yeah, it's well, like I said, our intramurals, I think it's a little bit of a soccer culture thing too. And it seems everyone thinks they're Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo out there. The funny thing that came up this week was a male student went to our female intramural supervisor and was like, "Who do you think you are? You can't make these decisions. You can't remove me from the gym or from the program. You don't have that authority." And she called me and I was like, "No, you're fine. You're doing a good job," kind of thing. And I think he was just taken back by it. I'm waiting for him to maybe step in my office today or on Monday. But yeah, soccer's the worst sport to run, I find.
I've had the same issues dealing with participants that at first they don't think that then I should be able to be enforcing the rules that I'm enforcing or telling them. And it's because I'm a female. So I've brought in just to have like a male coworker sit in on meetings with some participants just to have that male presence there. And yet, even though I'm the one speaking the entire time and kind of going through everything, just to then, have that male presence sitting there, and it goes fine. And I can only imagine kind of how they would take things otherwise if then that person wasn't there. So it's hard that way, but good for you for supporting then kind of your student staff and reinforcing that, yeah, they are doing the right thing or doing their job. And I guess soccer is always one that's interesting. We do for men's soccer and men's ice hockey, just because of past issues. There's a behavior bond that the teams will pay. And so it's $100 that then reinforces kind of hopefully a little bit better behavior that then will get taken away if they do get into any fights or incidents or things like that. And it's like, it's not for all our male sports, it's just for soccer and ice hockey because of past issues that have come up and have been around, and they get the money back at the end of the season as long as there's no issues. So it is something that then staff will remind the team captain and remind teams about to sometimes help, but there's still issues that do arise. And the behavior bond's been in place for longer than I've been at Brock, so I can't tell you what it was like beforehand, but it is then, yeah, a tool that we use to help that in that regard. So I'm not sure if any other schools do a kind of bond in that regards or not.
I know McGill does, just because I was chatting with one of Rin's coworkers last week. Is it kind of a strike system where, you know, first incident, you lose $100, or here's a warning, here you lose $25, here you lose another $25?
Depends on the severity. Depends on the severity. So if there's full on kind of, I don't want to say fight, because soccer players end up, okay, they'll push and shove a little bit, but it's more than verbally swearing and yelling at each other. So depends on then what's said and how far they take it. So it's really case by case basis. I have taken all the $100 before, and then since they don't have that bond, then they need to either repay it to continue playing in the league, or then they're out. Like, we'll reschedule a game, so we'll take them out of the league. Or then it's like, okay, $50, $30, like a certain amount. So I do kind of have a checklist of kind of different examples and severities that way of what amounts kind of will equal what. And then also depends on reoccurrence. Like if it's a team that has been warned before, even in other leagues and other sports, so IM Leagues is very good for being able to kind of keep track of that, then it may be the first time that, like, let's say the entire team then is kind of questioning and yelling at the official, but they were already warned in outdoor soccer, and now we're at indoor soccer. It's, no, you already had your warning there. So kind of that reoccurring or kind of factor in participants that way as well, that we'll take into account. Does any other school use bonds that way?
We just have a default deposit that they get back at the end of the season if no teams forfeit, but I really like this idea and maybe incorporating them together.
Yeah, I like the idea of it. When we bring soccer back, that might come back right with it.
At that point, they may not remember otherwise.
Half of them wouldn't even been here. They won't know any difference. So it's all good. Because we used to do a player bond, and we don't do one anymore at all with any of our leagues. So this would be the way if we were to bring it back, there would be a reason, and that would be the reason. It's just, yeah. Yeah. As we all know, soccer is stressful.
Yeah. I just think there's a little bit extra incentives when it comes to money. Like, there's a financial kind of impact to them playing and their behaviors at leagues. And it's, from soccer for us, it's not necessarily like physical altercations. It's then verbally between the players, and especially then bringing in the different players that play, they're not necessarily all speaking English. So we're then taking kind of the word of other players of what that translation is, or what people are saying. So it's been very interesting that way. Cricket, we also kind of had the same issues with this past year. So that was another one that was interesting, but really just realized, like, after talking to the players, they just want to play. So we took away the officials and we let them just play without being then told what's what, that they were much better at kind of figuring, like, deciding on rules and managing themselves versus then having a set league like we do for most of our other sports.
I just shared a little something in chat, but with all of our like major incidents, we also bring in one of our members of the non-academic misconduct committee, which usually scares the shit out of them because they realize that like I could lose my degree like because of my behavior in soccer. Like that's a big deal. So that's where we haven't had a bond in the past, which I think is a good idea, but this is where we go with our things.
And I'm sure word would get around quickly after someone has a meeting like that, then it's, oh, this, like, then everyone in the league knows. But, well, we are a little past 1 o'clock. So we are past our hour. So thanks for everyone for sticking around. Did anyone have any other questions that they had, or any other concerns, comments that they wanted to bring up before we wrap up? Perfect. Well, thank you all for coming. Feel free to send me an email